Hi, welcome to a short history lesson by Eden Cohen and Katie Kilchenko. Today we will be reviewing the Italian and German unifications as well as World War I terms. Now let's jump on into it. So we're going to start out with an overview about the Italian unification. The Italian unification began all the way in 1815 when Europe left the Italian territory scattered around from the settlements reached in the Congress of Vienna. In order for Italy to unify, they would need to go through a series of hurdles until they reached 1871 by finally adding Venetia and Rome. So Italy began with a revolutionary phase that began before 1848. This phase consisted of rising tensions among Italians. Italy started to get a rise in nationalism, which is a rise in patriotic feelings and a belief that people should hold their utmost loyalty to their nation. This was demonstrated through the creation of Young Italy, organized by the man by the name of Mazzini in 1831. Mazzini was a romantic nationalist Republican. He believed in equality, a central government, and locally elected authorities. However, he hated imperialism but was an activist for the Italian unification and a spearhead for the revolutionary movement. Pope Pius IX, a liberal leader of the Papal States, took a different approach in order to stop the revolutions. He started a series of reforms that only intensified Italian feelings of revolution, and thus the revolutions of 1848 began. So the revolutions consisted of some major players. Let's go ahead and introduce them. So Count Camillo Cavour. Cavour was the prime minister of Piedmont with Victor Emmanuel II. He wanted a constitutional monarchy, yet he was a conservative. So Garibaldi. Garibaldi was a fiery Republican of Piedmont who was crucial in the military efforts for Italy. And now we have Victor Emmanuel II, who was the first king of a united Italy and was crucial to influencing the people. Together, they formed a group to lead the revolutions. Victor Emmanuel II was the face of the revolutions, Mazzini was the heart, Garibaldi was the sword, and Cavour was the head. They launched into a diplomatic and military phase. It started out with Cavour planning to go at war with Austria in team with the French. Cavour and Napoleon III got Austria to initiate a war on the Piedmontese, and with French support, Cavour won the battles. This spurred the addition of new nations, and a military phase began. Garibaldi created his red shirts for an armed expedition into southern Italy. Local revolutionists in the two Sicilies quickly joined in, and the combined forces now began a march on Rome. Cavour was fearing the scandal of invading the lands of the Pope, so he marched the Piedmontese army through the Papal States and linked up with Garibaldi. Finally, unification was finished by adding Venetia and Rome. However, the Italians were not the only ones beginning to unify. German unification is what we're going to talk about next, and it was headed by an important historical figure named Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck was the chancellor of the Prussian Empire as well as a German nationalist. He shared the feelings of nationalism heavily presented in Germany at the time, and with his realpolitik views, he was able to be a mastermind of the German unification. These realpolitik views capitalized on practical means to achieve ends rather than moral ones. This basically means they would achieve German unification at any cost, war, or expense before they would consider moral setbacks. This spurred his famous quote, "Blood and iron," which was a big proponent of his military use. These were expressed through the Danish War of 1864. This was where Prussia and Austria were allied against Denmark. They ended up annexing Schleswig and Holstein, with Prussia getting Schleswig and Austria getting Holstein. Then, in the Austria-Prussian War of 1866, Austria is defeated humiliatingly at the Battle of Sadowa. Prussia ended up getting Holstein. This basically led to the Ems dispatch/telegram, in which the Spanish leaders wanted Prince Leopold von Hohenzollern, who was a Prussian, as their new king. France protested this and asked the Kaiser at Ems to apologize to Napoleon III for supporting Leopold. So Bismarck took the telegram from Wilhelm to the French ambassador and made it seem as if the Kaiser had insulted Napoleon, which led to the Franco-Prussian War. So the Franco-Prussian War went from 1870 to 1871, and France declared war in 1870. And Prussia invaded, quickly destroying France. This was a very brutal war, resulting in mass starvation. At the end, Germany gained Alsace-Lorraine. The Battle of Sedan was the final humiliating defeat of the French, and then in 1871, Bismarck declared the German Empire under Kaiser Wilhelm I in the Hall of Mirrors. Thus, the beginning of a unified Germany began. Now that we have covered those two unifications, let's jump into World War I. So, World War I. The previous issues between the countries in Europe were building tensions, and soon it all erupted in a form of a war. The causes of this war can be classified under militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism, and a culture of violence. Militarism is the belief that a country's government and/or the people should maintain a strong military and not be afraid to use it aggressively towards others. An example of this was the naval race, in which Wilhelm of Germany had an obsession with making Germany the strongest naval power. This led to a race between Great Britain and Germany, essentially trying to be the greatest naval force, which was a big form of militarism. Alliances are unions formed for mutual benefit between countries, and this played a key role in dragging multiple countries into the war. The Triple Entente / the Allies was made up of France, Britain, Russia, Serbia, and Italy post-1915. On the other hand, the Triple Alliance / Central Powers consisted of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and Italy until 1915. Imperialism is a diplomacy or military force trying to extend the land and the power of a country, which was shown through the scramble for Africa, which was the European rush to colonize Africa. Nationalism was a patriotic feeling about one's own country and was expressed throughout the August days in Berlin that were spontaneous parades in support of the First World War. The war had already started, so it wasn't a direct cause, but it was very influential. However, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was another example in which Serbian nationalists called the Black Hand took out the action in the name of their country. Lastly, a culture of violence was huge in Europe through dueling, where men would agree to fight, some to the death, in the name of their honor. Those all reflected through different events throughout the First World War. And the war ended through the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in 1919. It removed German troops and forced Germany to pay reparations as well as returned Alsace-Lorraine to France. The treaty put a lot of the blame on Germany through Article 231, which was also known as the German War Guilt Clause, which essentially put the entire blame on Germany alone. As well as this, Woodrow Wilson of Great Britain argued for a plan of peace. These were called the 14 Points, which created the League of Nations, freedom of the seas, and self-determination. They became a sort of guideline at Treaty of Versailles. And with this, we have reviewed a bit of Italian and German unifications as well as World War I. Thanks for watching! For more historical information, make sure you pay attention in Miss Keller's class for her lessons.